Talk to America's mayor. I'm America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, and we're looking forward to an end of week that's going to be, I hope, very, very exciting, and is going to get into some of the issues that have made this once again, a very unique week in the United States, with things that we hardly ever expected we would get to see. When Biden was out there castigating Trump for being irresponsible for having classified documents secured at Mar-a-Lago, which is a inherently secure facility, we had no idea. And I guess he didn't remember. Well, that's what he says. And I'm not going to doubt that very much, because I have very little regard for his memory. I don't think much of it exists anymore. I think that he is losing brain cells, and he never had very many as we speak. But here, this guy has the nerve to say that Trump was irresponsible. Remember, all the documents that Trump took were kept at Mar-a-Lago, which is a guarded facility, guarded by both private security and the Secret Service. You can't have access unless you're a member or you're permitted to come in. And the idea that they were jeopardized in some way, hard to see. Now, in his case, it's quite different. In his case, it first turns out that on November 2nd of last year, his lawyers discovered classified documents at his office. Now, his office is in a public. This office was an office he maintained largely when he was out of office, although the documents date back to when he was in office, which would be in, we think, 2014, 15, 16, sort of at the height of his corruption, really, when he was really raking in money from our enemies like China, Ukraine, Russia, come to think of it. And this is the Biden Penn Fund. Now, it sounds rather academic and kind of, but about 14 to 15% of its funding comes directly from Red China, from the Chinese communists. So the last place you'd want to put documents is in a place that the Red Chinese have any ownership interest in or involvement with. Plus, it was just a building. Well, this is the level of security that very careful Joe, who was bragging about himself, about how careful he is with documents. This is what the building looks like. Can you see that? Do we get a nice picture of that on the camera here? This is the office building. You see, it's a normal, everyday office building. I don't see any guy walking in right there. There's no security for this building, and in the middle of it, there's this fund, which looks to me like a cash cow, one of many for the crooked Biden family, where China and other people who bribe him, put the money in, and he took a fairly substantial amount of money out, I think. But in any event, that's where he had these classified top secret documents in violation of federal law. And as far as we can tell, he's had them there for years. So this is a long-term violation of the federal statute that, by the way, applies to him, but not necessarily to a president. Then, that comes out. First shocking thing is that, of course, it wasn't brought out 2 months earlier when it was discovered. But of course, an election was going on then, and everything gets decided based on partisan Democrat politics. It's like in China, whatever good for the Communist Party is good for the country. in Biden's world, what's ever good for Biden and the Democrat Party is what's necessary for the country, no matter how much it violates your rights or mine or the good of the country. So that was not disclosed to us until a few days ago. And then for a couple of days, it sounded like that was it. You kept waiting, though. I mean, once you listen to him, you realize this man has only a vague awareness of what's going on. And then all of a sudden, another group of documents were discovered, this time at his home, or should I say Hunter Biden's home. And again, classified documents. And then when his lapdog attorney general, the crooked Merrick Garland, had his press conference, he kind of slipped, and it was clear there were three incidents where they found documents at the office in which Red China is a contributor, at his home, inside his home. We don't know exactly where, because unlike Trump at Mar-a-Lago, they did not embarrass him with taking pictures of it to have it all over the newspapers, because the crooked FBI agents who work at that Washington level, the rest of them are good men and women. They're not going to embarrass. They're not going to embarrass the dictator, because they are a state police now. But then it turns out there was also one in a garage. There was also documents in a garage, and he made an eloquent defense of this with Peter Ducey. I mean, really eloquent. I mean, Joe has always been known for his brilliant use of language. Because I'm being extremely sarcastic. He really is something close to a moron. And he defended this because it was so secure in his home. It was so darn secure in his home. I mean, my goodness, who could complain about this being in his home? The Biden home. Well, first of all, it wasn't the Biden home. It was the home of a 30, 40-year degenerate drug addict named Hunter Biden. But so are all the homes, I gather. That's what it means when you're a bag man for a public official who takes bribes. You see, he takes the money and then he pays for all the expenses of the family. Then he kicks over half his income to his father. You want to know how I know that? I read the hard drive. You know why you don't know it? They still don't publish it. There's still a form of censorship that goes on. Nor do they publish the text about what a danger he constitutes, Hunter does, to the minor children in the family, and the failure of a really miserable grandfather, Joe Biden, to take any action to protect his grandchildren. The ones he acknowledges, the one he doesn't acknowledge, I guess he would do nothing to help her, except create what will be for her significant problems when she realizes that her grandfather was the president of the United States and never acknowledged her. But I mean, I think this just shows you the depth of his corruption and narcissism. It really is pretty breathtaking. It's kind of breathtaking, and I would say I'd say it's breathtaking and frightening to think that he's running this country. So I wanted to see if I could play for you, if we have it. We'll see if we have it here. Oh, here. Let's listen to this about how safe these were. Let's listen to it first, and then I'll show this to you. I mean, it's really quite. We'll make sure this is loud enough. All right, here we go.
Classified material next to your Corvette. What were you thinking?
Let me, look, we're going to get a chance to speak on all this, God willing, soon. But as I said earlier this week, people, and by the way, my Corvette's in a locked garage. Okay, so it's not like you're sitting out in the street. But anyway,
It was in a locked garage.
yes, as well as my Corvette. But as I said earlier this week, people know I take classified documents and classified material seriously.
Lie number one. First of all, the idea that a locked garage on a street constitutes security is ludicrous, right? But the idea that he takes it seriously is belied by the front page of the New York Post. There's a picture of his famous Corvette. Can you see that now, Ted? Do we see that?
Pull it up a little bit.
Up higher?
Yep, a little bit, not much.
Okay.
Good, good. Yep.
You see the round circle. The round circle in the back is where the classified material is. So not only was it in a garage, which, by the way, you could break the lock on that garage. Any burglar, an apprentice burglar could do it. Let's put it that way. And then you'd be really surprised because you would have to go looking for the classified material. Joe has it there for you as if he wants you to read it. There it is right there. Here, want a better look at how careful he is about classified material? There it is, right there. This is the guy pontificating about Donald Trump. If any American soldier did this, they'd go to jail. This would be a 4 or 5 year jail sentence for an American employee of the government, assistant U.S. attorney. And that's all he is. He's the vice president. He's an employee of the government. He doesn't have the protections that a president has or the discretion a president has in determining what is and what is not classified. And the idea that he's careful about classified material is as big a lie as he finished first in his class, or he beat up Corn Pop, or any of this other stuff. But I mean, this is really serious now, because it does involve the security of the United States, and it shows really how horribly hypocritical they are. Isn't it amazing? It seems like everything they accuse Trump or me or others of, they actually have done it and we haven't. I guess it's a form of projection, but I think it's at a pathological level. I want to welcome Twitch. We just incorporated Twitch into our family here, and we're very, very happy to have them with us. I'm sure we don't have too many people yet, but we started off the others pretty small, right? And we grew big audiences, and we set records almost every night in each one of the social apps. And we're also in one that I'm not familiar with, but Ted's going to tell me about it, Twitter Spaces. So we're on Twitter and have been from pretty much day one, right, Ted?
That's right.
So now, what is the difference with Twitter Spaces?
So we are on Twitter live video. So those of us on Twitter Spaces, if you'd like to switch over to live video and see the mayor, you can do that at any time. Twitter Spaces is audio only. It is within the Twitter app. You kind of schedule a time, and you go in there at that time, kind of like we'll call it a virtual chat room, an audio chat room. We
have anybody chatting with us from there?
So people will go into the Twitter Spaces, and people will request to speak. So at any point, this is another way for us to interact with listeners and viewers via Twitter Spaces. And right now we have 420 individuals listening in via Twitter Spaces.
And this is our first night.
This is our first night doing it. And we only announced it maybe a half hour early. And Twitter Spaces is a feature that many individuals are utilizing these days, including Elon Musk. Some of the more recent Twitter files and those things. A lot of the individuals who have been leading the kind of reporting on the Twitter files has.
So let's
moved into
review.
Twitter
Let's
Spaces.
review. Let's review for the benefit of our audience and the benefit of the mayor, so he knows to whom he is speaking. We have YouTube, which we're probably the most familiar with because our podcast has been on YouTube, from the beginning, and we've done now. We're almost up to 300, aren't we, Jet? Podcasts.
That's right.
Yeah, we're gonna hit 300 pretty soon.
Absolutely, we are. So, Mayor, we
Seems
are.
to me like I just started. It seems to me that I just started.
For the audience and for myself, Mayor, when did you start it?
I started it at the beginning of 2020 at the same, and now I started it before I went on WABC radio. It was my first, and it was pre COVID. Radio happened because of COVID. I decided that it would be a way for me to have directly a voice in the 2020 election, so that I could express my opinions directly to people, because I would get I had gone on Twitter. I had gone on Twitter during the 2016 election, and I found that I used to get a lot of questions, and useful ones that way, that I could answer. And so I thought, well, let me do a podcast, and I can then cover the issues that I want to cover. And lo and behold, all of a sudden the pandemic starts, and my friend John Castamatidis takes over WABC and asks me to do a radio show there as a special, to help people with the emergency situation. And to also, he wanted me to utilize Dr. Maria, because she was truly an expert on that illness. She had really been preparing a hospital for it for 4 or 5 months, and was one of the people who were early predictors of it. So we started doing both, and then we just fell in love with doing it. And we also felt we were doing a lot of good for people. We've been contrarians about the pandemic from the very beginning. She from the very beginning was certain that it came out of the Wuhan lab. She was the first to interview the whistleblower, because the whistleblower was going to go on Tucker's show, but the woman spoke very, very poor English at the time and was extraordinarily nervous. So she thought if she came on our show, which had a much smaller audience, it was only our second or third week on Uncovering the Truth, which will be on this Sunday between 10 and 11, she'd have a smaller audience and she could be less nervous. Turned out she spent the weekend with us here, and she and Maria became good friends, because she was I don't think she was a doctor, but she was very well trained in science, and they were able to communicate. And so Maria put her through her first interview, and then helped her through the interview with Tucker, not in terms of what to say, but in terms of being calm. And a woman, I think, was only in her 20s, and was frightened as hell that she would be killed by the Chinese government, and laid out the whole thing. This was like in March, and it laid out the whole thing. From the very beginning, we've known the whole truth about it, and from her. So that's how we started, and I immediately realized that the role that I should play with many others is to get people the truth, because even before the cover-up of the hard drive, which was one of the more shocking events of my life as an American, that they would do that. The cover-ups that were going on even in 2016 were quite shocking. I mean, the Democrat Party has been, I say they had our government on an express train to Marxism and communism, which they do, but they themselves were on an express train to fascism. And the pandemic brought out in the Democratic governors the fascist tendencies of socialists. You can see how they love bossing people around. Your governor in Michigan was one of the worst. Whitlis was one of the really worst in terms of just making these arbitrary orders and then not following them. I thought the funniest one of all was Lightfoot in Chicago when she banned all hairdressers. Couldn't go to a hairdresser or get a haircut. Well, for a man, that's annoying, but for a woman, that's, I mean, a lot of women, including my mom, had to go to the hairdressers once a week. It was like a ritual. It was as important as going to mass. In fact, that was cut off also. And when they cut off when they cut it off, it really was quite amazing. You know, while I'm talking to you, I'm actually looking at Newsmax. I see it on the TV, and Christina Bobb, who was one of the lawyers that worked with me during the election contests and whatever. She's a great lawyer, former Marine, great lawyer, working for the president now. She's on talking for the president, and they just showed the same thing I showed you. Christina kind of trained us, so I'm sort of proud, very proud of her. And I can't hear what she's saying, but I know what she's saying. She's saying almost exactly the same thing that I said to you, that this guy is a complete mockery. He had the, I mean, that picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Right, Ted?
Absolutely.
I mean, that picture, you got to say about the Post headlines, their headline writers and their photographers. I mean, all you've got to do is look. Anybody vet this guy? They're talking about Biden. Yeah. You
can read down a little bit if you want to show you want to talk about it.
But then that other one here is really nice. Does this look secure?
Put it up to the side of your. Put it up. Just kind of put it to the side of your face, Mayor, so people can see you.
Which is my better side?
There you go. That side. There you go. Yeah. Everyone's saying that's your best side. You don't have a bad side, so 2 good sides.
Look at this.
I've been
That's great. Like, come on. Does this look secure?
Looks like it's next to the paint, between the paint cans and the rakes for the fall.
These are top secret documents from a guy who handles it very, very. Imagine the people who don't handle it carefully, what they do with it. They probably hand it out on the street.
You can't make this up. Apparently, Hunter Biden lived in this house.
Hunter Biden owns the house.
Hunter owns the house, but what have you taught us about Joe's connection to all of these properties?
Please. I hope you have it memorized by now. I hope you have. If you don't have it memorized by now, you're not listening. Hunter, to his daughter, 2018, December, says, I've been taking care of the expenses for this family for 30 years, and they still don't have any respect for me. But something to the effect, they like you better, and maybe they won't require you to give like me. I had to give half of my income for the last 30 years to Pop. So now, as a lawyer and a trial lawyer, I take that apart as follows with the other evidence, right? So what is the big question been in this whole Biden case from the beginning? Who would pay Hunter Biden these amounts of money, right? Who would pay these amounts of money for the services of a drug addict, of a seriously afflicted drug addict? Which I'm not saying this to judge him or condemn him. I feel that his father is the reason he's such a bad drug addict, because his father put him into a business that no person should be in at all, but certainly not a person with an addictive personality. Basically, this is this. Oh, I can't say it's the most shock. It's not. I guess I stopped being shocked a while ago. But it's hard to imagine he would get up and he would castigate Trump the way he did, knowing that he did this. But he says he doesn't remember. But think about this. Now let's see how truthful that is. He says, I don't remember. How did his lawyer know where to go to look for it? When the first one was discovered on November 2nd, at that building that is hardly secure. and he went to his office and found the documents. Who told the lawyer to go there? And why did he have to send a lawyer there? Why did he send the Secret Service or the government there if they were government documents? What's the lawyer doing in there? And why did they conceal it for 2 months? And then why did they conceal the other one for several weeks? Well, they concealed it for 2 months because they didn't want it to affect the election. And also, like Teddy Kennedy delayed, for almost a whole day to report the death of Mary Jo Kopechne. They were trying to work a story out, but not having the intellect of the Kennedys, they didn't work out much of a story other than, I don't remember. I forgot. Joe, how come these documents I can imagine on the witness stand, I introduce into evidence government exhibit 16 for identification. Mr. Biden, is that your car? Yes, it is. That's your Corvette that you like to drive around in, isn't that right? Yes. And this is the secure garage that you were talking about, right? This is really this looks like a very, I don't know if you can see the small wooden door here, but this doesn't seem to be much security. But that's the security that you provided for these top secret documents, right? And then they're sitting out here. Oh my goodness! They're sitting out here with a whole bunch of other things, just for anybody to go over and read. Were you sort of inviting people to read these secret documents about, Ukraine? And for example, does it have the money laundering transaction that I have that you were involved in with Ukraine and Latvia and Cyprus, which went into your son's account, which he shared with John Kerry's stepson? Did it go? And then you got $900,000 out of it. Does it have that one? You got that while you were vice president. You know what they call that, Mr. Biden? Because in court we would call him Mr. Biden. They call that bribery. And you know what happens to other Americans who do this? They go to jail for 4 years. Yep. Yeah, some poor soldier did that. Wow, they'd ruin him. But you can do anything you want. So, how are we going to resolve this? What's going to happen? I think we just saw a checkmate here. I think they can't indict. They can't prosecute or indict Biden until he leaves the White House. So, guilty or not, he can't be indicted. It would be, I think, too much for the country to take if they indicted Trump now under circumstances where his violation, which legally might not be a criminal violation because he's subjected to the Presidential Records Act, which doesn't have criminal penalties. Biden is subjected to the Federal Records Act, which does, including disqualification from office. But assuming you applied that to Trump and you overcame a motion to dismiss, in many ways, Biden's conduct was much more egregious. The conditions of security for the documents were non-existent. In fact, they were ludicrous by having it out there in the garage. Whereas Mar-a-Lago, the conditions of security were not terribly different than at the White House. Not as much, but still private security to get in, Secret Service security to get in. No one had full access to everything in the facility. This was behind a closed door. It was examined at least once, maybe more, by the FBI. Only one recommendation was made as to improve the security of it, and they incorporated it. Now, whether it is or it isn't a violation, it's not as serious as sticking it out there in a garage. Plus, it was only for for a year and a half while they were discussing who kept what, which is an appropriate discussion under the Presidential Records Act, because unlike the vice president with his papers, the president has kind of a carryover a personal ownership interest. They used to belong to the president. The Records Act gave them to the government, but gave the president a sort of inferior co-ownership right. And therefore, he has a right to go through them, decide what he wants to keep. He can put aside some as personal, and if the archivist agrees, then those would not be part of it. So there are real functions there, whereas Biden had no function at all. Plus, Biden's situation lasted for 7 years. 7 years. That's a lot of time for those documents to be sitting out there in Hunter's garage. And if you take a look at the photos of the people that Hunter hangs around with, which included for a while a Chinese spy who he was having sex with. Yes, national security was breached. Amazing, absolutely amazing. So, what do we have today, Ted?
Thanks for joining us. America's Mayor Live with America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani on a
big football weekend.
Friday.
Big football weekend coming up to set up the Super Bowl. Of course, I'm only interested in my Giants, but they're playing on Sunday. They're playing Minnesota on Sunday, which should be a good game.
That's right, Mayor. And so we're getting a lot of questions tonight. A lot of people tuning in. Of course, our first time on Twitch this evening. So we'll be building up that audience. And of course, our first time on Twitter Spaces. There are over 700 people in our space. And so we will continue to grow that as well. And of course, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter video. We'll be implementing Instagram.
Getter.
And of course, we can't forget about Getter.
I'm saying hello to them.
Over here, we have Getter. We're on Getter Live with over 2,000.
And they have any observations or questions from Getter?
Getter folks are thanking the mayor. Thank you for standing up for truth and working hard each and every day, Mayor.
That's very kind of them. Thank you.
And of course, we're getting more questions here about Hillary Clinton.
They remember her, huh?
The connection between Obama and what's going on right now.
Isn't it a little late at night to be talking about Hillary without fear of nightmares and things like that? No, what was the question? I'm sorry.
Obama's role, is he still involved, you think, as a party?
Well, I mean, this is we will put this in the category of Rudy's speculation. These are not facts, and I'm not purporting that they are facts, but I just have a feeling that Obama's calling the shots. I think Obama has begun the process of dropping Biden. I think this whole revelation was authorized by him as the beginning of an exit for Biden that can be premised on something that is somewhat limited. It's depending on how it plays out, limited to this record keeping or classified record situation. They don't have to get into everything else. And McGarland is certainly not going to push any of those investigations. If he was, he's had plenty of time to do it, and he has it. I mean, Garland is a poor excuse for an attorney general and a completely dishonorable man. Otherwise, they would have had subpoenas and they'd be before grand juries by now. You don't just let people commit crimes like this when it's open and notorious and obvious, and it's an embarrassment to the integrity of the great organization that he runs, that he's defiled.
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live, the fastest hour on the internet. For our new listeners and viewers, we are on weeknights, 8 to 9 p.m. again on Twitter video, Twitter Live, Twitter Spaces, Facebook. We'll be on Instagram starting next week again. Getter, we're on every night. And of course, our YouTube channel. You can also listen to the mayor on WABC Radio at WABCradio.com. That's from 3 to 4 p.m. weekdays. The mayor is on WABC Radio. And Sunday mornings, 10 a.m.
Coming up, 10 a.m. on Sunday, Dr. Maria and I do Uncovering the Truth, and you get to call in and we examine an issue. I suspect it'll have something to do with this whole situation and where it's going. Maybe we'll discover some more documents by then. Who knows? You think there are more documents, Ted, hanging around?
I think there may be dozens of locations.
I don't know where they are. I mean,
let's see. We got the closet. We got him in a closet. We got him in a garage.
Do you have any vanilla ice cream?
We got to check the basement where he didn't spend
vanilla ice cream.
I'm sure they got a whole thing of vanilla ice cream down there for him.
That's what I need. How did we put this guy in the White House? I mean, this is a serious job for the clown.
A concerted effort to defeat Donald Trump by the academic establishment, the media establishment, Hollywood, the big tech, the Washington political class,
the
criminals, and all of them combined,
who like this idea of being let out of jail and not going to jail for crime. Criminals really like it when they don't go to jail for crime, and when they can commit crimes and they don't have to go to jail, and therefore that's why they vote Democratic.
So they vote Democrat.
And why do you think the Democrats are so anxious to have their right to vote restored? Because the criminals are going to vote Democrat. Don't you think that's a pretty good reason to vote Republican? If the criminals are voting Democrat, maybe they're sending you a message that if Democrats are in office, the scales get weighed on their side and a lot more people get killed. You look at our cities; they're coming apart. And mine, which is getting a very bad reputation because first myself and then Bloomberg really had gotten into pretty darn good shape and handed over to de Blasio, probably in the best condition it's been in, and he ruined it. You know, we went 20 years without a riot until a Democrat mayor returned. I mean, they almost seem to know how to produce crime in their cities and set records. Philadelphia set a record last year for the most homicides in the history of Philadelphia under a Soros district attorney. Little Rochester, New York set a record for the most murders last year under a Soros district attorney. Soros district attorneys bring with them death and destruction for the benefit of that whatever he is, egotist or devotee of one world. We should all be one world, but run by Soros. Read his background sometime. Get an idea of what problems he must have in his head, given what he did. So how about anyone calling us from Alabama? Alabama got a really bad situation.
That's right, Mayor. So let us know, comment below who you are and where you're tuning in from.
Anybody from Alabama.
Especially if you're tuning in from Selma, Alabama, or the surrounding communities.
I guess Selma was the worst hit, right, Ted?
That's right. A tornado caused significant damage to downtown Selma. What they're saying is a significant long track tornado crossed central Alabama. This is on Thursday, causing devastation across multiple counties, making its way from west to east. The hardest hit community was Selma in Dallas County.
In what county?
Dallas County.
Isn't that interesting? Dallas County, like the city of Dallas.
It was almost a direct hit on the downtown area, a historic downtown area. And the Dallas County Jail was hit by the tornado.
Well, people are reminded when that happens of the fragility of human life and how you never know. And therefore, you should always be ready. Always be ready. You never know. I remember as a youngster having that sort of taught to me by my parents and by the nuns, that that was from the point of view of you never know when the time is, so have yourself ready, by having been decent and good and helping other people. And then you don't have to worry. God will take care of you. God may take care of you anyway, because God is loving and forgiving. But not a bad idea to go in with the best record possible. Right now, I'm suspended from practicing law, which is very hurtful, by the way. It's very hurtful economically, I can tell you that, but it's very hurtful emotionally also, because it's, believe it or not, the thing I like best of all the things I did, being a lawyer. And I don't think I would have accomplished anywhere near what I accomplished without having had legal training, because I utilized it in my analysis of other problems. I analyzed crime that way. I analyzed welfare that way. I analyzed the budget that way. I analyzed foreign policy that way. I used, the rational, almost internal Socratic method in doing it. And people have all other ways of analyzing and thinking, but that appealed to me. It appealed to the way I think and the way I look at things. So, and we've got so much to rebuild in this country that we're going to have to remain together. We're going to have to remain together and find ways, and we're always looking for ways. And if you have some suggestions, let me know. Find ways of organizing ourselves better. We're going to be putting together I don't like to call it a club sounds so, but we're going to be putting together an organization of people that, listen to the podcast and listen to this and communicate with us into like a special group, so that we can discuss in more detail, particularly now as we're getting closer to the election. It won't be until the summer, but this is a good time to do the talking. We're going to start forming this into a premier group, so that we can figure out how to get the benefit of all your talents, so that we don't get to 24 and wake up after the day after the election and say, oh, we forgot to. We're not going to forget anything. You'll see what we have in mind, and stay with us on all our different platforms. We're going to also try to organize them a little better, so it's easier to find us. But so the platforms are, let me just go through that for you, so you can stay in touch. I mean, the way to stay in touch is to write down rudygiulianics.com. rudygiulianics.com. You hit that and you will have all of my podcasts, of which there are almost 300 now. You'll have the most recent ones. And the most recent one is an analysis and a comparison of Biden's violation of the law and Trump's, and then some really observations from that you don't have time to go into if you don't have that little extra time that a podcast gives you, about how, for example, so many of the things that Trump has been accused of falsely, or I've been accused of, or Trump's friends, are things that they did. I mean, they colluded with the Ukrainians and they accused him of colluding with the Russians falsely. Biden did a straight out and out bribe to Poroshenko to protect the organized criminal Mykola Zlochevsky, who paid him a fortune, and to protect his son. And then they accused Trump of doing that with the later president, Poroshenko, Zelensky, which he didn't do. And now we have this situation with reckless handling of of classified material, I submit that Trump did not handle it recklessly. He handled the way a lot of presidents do when they negotiate. What do I keep? What do you keep? How do we classify this? Gee, I think this is more personal. The archivist says, no, I think that's historical value. I mean, these are the questions that were being looked at, and there was no Hunter Biden hanging around that could, breach the security of it. At Mar-a-Lago, there wasn't, but there was at the other place. And I mean, Hunter would have to, be blind not to fall over it. And Joe put it right out there for people, almost as if it's perfectly okay to read it. So let's realize what this means for our country and how much damage we're taking because of this man and the mistake that we made, and just not make it again. Get ourselves straightened out and on the right path, which is not so hard because there's such a great country. Really is such a great country.
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live, on a busy Friday night. Comment below who you are and where you're tuning in from. We got a message from Nick Nicometti. At 27, I moved to New York City and became politically aware because of Mayor Giuliani. Mayor, we have a few people asking because they haven't heard it yet. In RudyGiulianiCS.com, what does the CES stand for?
Common sense.
So thanks.
Borrowed from the great American patriot Thomas Paine and his great book, Common Sense. And speaking about great writers and thinkers, we should spend a moment commenting on the passing of Paul Johnson. Paul Johnson was an English journalist and historian of some note who wrote some 50 books on many subjects, the best ones being on history, and wrote a great analysis of the modern world circa 1980s or so. And really, I think, demonstrated the reasons why we were able to overcome communism and the tremendous contributions of Reagan, Thatcher, and Kohl to that. It's worth reading. He passed on yesterday, and it was the loss of a great mind and a great contributor. So,
thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live.
On the sports front, we're zeroing in on the Super Bowl. I don't know if your people listening, if you guys go into a pool or something like that, but I got tired of that because it gets so complicated. All those, I mean, I had friends I watched the Super Bowl with. They would bet on who scored first.
Prop bets, that's very big. That's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And now with legalized betting, Mayor, people are doing it right on their phone.
Yeah. I think that's starting to get you into dangerous kind of betting when you do that. I mean, betting, it can be addictive and destructive. You got to be careful.
It's amazing how far and how fast it's changed, even in the last 10 years.
Yeah, and the more romantic it becomes, the more glitzy and glamorous it becomes, the more you're going to suck young people into it, like they're doing they're having terrible problems with marijuana in New York. We're just rolling out legal marijuana, and it's not out yet, and all the crooks have been selling it. You know how we have those street vendors in New York, and they do great damage to the legitimate businesses that operate indoors and pay taxes and pay wages. Well, the illegal marijuana vendors are out already to try to preempt the legal ones, and you've got tremendous dangers now you didn't have when they were ill-advised in passing this law, which is called fentanyl. And fentanyl can be in anything. There was a young boy in Philadelphia, 12, I think, who took a over-the-counter medication that had fentanyl in it, and they were just able to save his life. This fentanyl is not just going to be a danger to the long-term drug addict. the occasional drug addict, the first-time drug addict, or people even involved with prescription medications have to worry about it. And I mean, this is thank you, Joe Biden. This fentanyl thing was down. It was way down under Trump. And by deciding to reverse everything Trump was doing with illegal immigration at the border and giving us an open border, fentanyl comes now in at will. And China is making a fortune with it. And it is also sitting back and taking a big toll out of America. Record number of deaths last year and this year.
That's right, Mayor.
And it's also horrible for the morale and the decency. It's horrible for the morale and the decency of a country that people are dying of drugs, and they're not able to handle their addictions. It creates a terrible issue for the morale of society, and morale is so important.
Pam writes, my son died in May taking fentanyl. He thought it was a Percocet.
Yeah. Happens all the time now. The groups involved.
Comment below.
I don't know as you do this, if people, as they move on, have become more and more evil, but these people, both the Chinese communists and the cartels, the Mexican cartels, have no regard at all for human life. And to them, human life isn't worth a darn thing. Maybe that's how this all began. Maybe that's how we got ourselves into this moral decline, because we disrespected God's greatest creation, which is is human life. I know we spend a lot of time respecting God's other creatures, and my goodness, I applaud it tremendously. And I think you saw when I was with the animals that I have great love for animals, but I have more love for people. And I recognize that these are God's great creation. The power over their life I don't have it. God does, or should.
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live. We are winding down. Just a few minutes to go on what has been a very busy news week. At this time, this message is for anyone who wants to support the show. But if you're moving or packing, this may be of particular interest to you. Big John's Moving. We are asking you to check out their website. Supporting Big John's, going to Big John's Moving. It was not only a good decision for anyone moving or packing, but you're also supporting the mayor and the fight to protect the future of this country. So visit bigjohnsmoving.com. That's bigjohnsmoving.com. Or call 212-734-3300. That's 212-734-3300 to schedule an appointment or a free quote today. Mayor, I know you've had experience with Big John. I have used
Big John a number of times. So and Big John's been in business for 30 years, and a lot of the same people. I actually am friends with some of his people as well as him. They're a family business, and these people have been working with him forever, and they take care of your furniture. It's really annoying when you move, particularly if you bought a nice new piece of furniture and they bang it all up and they hand it off. If you're going to move from New York to Florida, which it seems like all New York is doing, fleeing Hochul and Adams and the Democratic crooks, you're going to want, quality service, and that's what they give you. They use the same crew. A lot of these moving companies, they'll have somebody pick it up in New York, and then they'll get to Washington, somebody else will grab it, and they'll get it down to Georgia, somebody else will grab it. Every time they turn over your furniture, there's a great risk of damaging it or losing something or harming it. John doesn't do that. He puts a dedicated crew on. They go right through with it. The people you saw up in New York, you're going to see down in Fort Lauderdale. And I say that because I mean, the moving trucks are on every block in New York. Well, what do you expect? I mean, we're a socialistic economy where the single greatest indictment of the Democrat Party program is the fact that people flee it. Nobody flees the Republican states. The net migration is to Republican Florida and Republican Texas. The two governors that they hate the most, Abbott and DeSantis, are getting all the people. The ones losing it are the semi-dictators like Witless in
Michigan,
California, Newsom the wacko,
New York,
Murphy the worst governor in the
New
world,
Jersey,
and Hochul who's trying to cash in on the stadium with her husband. And they're the ones that are losing people. So you can brainwash people about voting, and the Democrats have done that in the major cities quite effectively, unfortunately. And I think it's changing, but it's going to take a while. But you can't brainwash them at the quality of their life, or the safety of their children, or the kind of thing that the attorney general, the crooked attorney general's son-in-law does. He has this gigantic business. They have contracts with thousands of schools to basically take a 5, 6, 7, or 8-year-old and have them doubt their gender. Because if they want to do something about changing it, the company makes a fortune in medicines. And then I don't know if they do the operation also, but that operation costs a fortune. It's also, in my view, it's mutilation and a crime, not to take the sexual organs of a child off. I don't know what that is. It sure isn't medicine. Sure doesn't meet up with the standards of the Hippocratic Oath, that's for sure.
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live. The closing minutes. Be sure to visit bigjohnsmoving.com if you're moving or packing. In our ticker below, you can find more information, their website, bigjohnmovies.com, and a phone number. And again, by supporting Big John's Moving, by going through Big John's Moving, you're not only making the right decision on packing and moving, but you will be supporting this live stream and all of the work the mayor and his team is doing to protect the future of
So why don't we throw
country.
in a plug for our best pal, Mr. Pillows? Come on, get the slippers. Darn it. You see him on television all the time asking you to buy his, did I say pillows? I meant slippers. Well, get his pillows too. The pillows are great. I got about 10 of them. I have pillow fights with them.
So you go to mypillows.com. That's mypillows.com.
Go to mypillows.com. But I'm going to tell you, you can get the best pair of slippers there. They got a nice whole big assortment. They're real thick. I mean, they're nice, and you can walk outside with them. They have different shapes. They have ones for big feet now. So go to mypillows.com/Rudy and pick up some stuff from Mike, who's on your side.
So when they go to mypillows.com, what should they type in? Mypillows.com, and what promo code should they use? Rudy. And in that way, again, you will be getting the best.
Give you another place you can do that. PatriotMobile.com. You can do that. They have coverage for the internet. They challenge all the big companies. You put Rudy in, you'll get free installation. PatriotMobile.com/Rudy. And you'll get free installation. Call them for quotes too, because I think they can beat your company or come real close, and you'll be working with people who have the same Christian conservative values that have made this country great. Judeo-Christian conservative, Western civilization.
Well, Mayor, we are down to our final minute. Your closing message for the week as we go into the weekend. What do you have for our audience this evening?
Make your own mind up about things and learn to be a critical thinker so that your children will be that way. Because they're living in a world where people want to brainwash them. Not just communists and fascists and Nazis and but these networks want to brainwash them. If you do your own critical thinking, you do a little analysis on your own. You go read, Well, I do this every morning. I go but I look for the facts in the articles. I look for the facts, and I look for an article that's supported or isn't supported. And I can see the games they play sometimes, when they don't give you the facts. They just give you these generalizations. But do your own critical thinking. And pretty soon we're going to have an opportunity so you can call in, and we'll be able to have conversations about these issues, because I think that's important for me and important for you as we move to. We want to make sure we have a full complement of services available for 24. And please also give me your recommendations of things that you think we can do that will help you be able to make a contribution to saving your country. I don't think there's ever been a time in the history of this country where we need citizens' help as much as this since the War of Independence, and different kind of help. This has to do with getting people out to vote, getting to organizations and groups, and getting them to understand what the real truth is, things like that. But it's so important. And we're going to be on this weekend, as I said, at 10 to 11 Eastern time on WABCRadio.com. You can get that. You can get that in an app, and then you can listen to WABC Radio all over the world. Today, for example, Joel called from Jerusalem. Wasn't able to get to Joel today. Almost never miss him. So I'm hoping Joel will call on Sunday, because he can give me some real, sort of my correspondent in Israel. So you can get me all over the world on that, or on RudyGiulianiCS.com. So you keep in touch, and over the weekend, do some thinking about how you can think for yourself, how you can look behind things and not get yourself pushed around by these people with an agenda, because they're really ruining our country. And I think we're making progress in halting it, but now we got to turn it back. Thank you for participating. Thank you for being on, and tell your friends, to join us. I think we have a good time during this period, and we're going to find more ways for you to communicate and participate. Hopefully we'll announce that next week. Right, Ted?
Absolutely.
All right. Let's let Ted know how much we love him. Can you hear him?
Yeah, look, the mayor's happy. I'm happy. There you go.
Can you hear him? I can hear them all.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, all of you, for joining us, particularly Twitch and Twitter Spaces, for our maiden voyage.